Why, hello. It'll be good to see you today, although I doubt that you'll find it good to see me, because like before, I've come to set a sword between you. I won't be treating you as equals. Instead, I'll be treating you as you deserve, which unfortunately won't be treating you the way I would want to. I made the mistake before. Between truth and mercy, I chose mercy far too often, and that may have been a mistake. But as I showed in the past, corruption and regeneration, the twin-headed beast, much had been sacrificed because of them, and much had been gained because of them. But instead of going into detail about them right away, instead will be time for explanation, because in my haste, I had failed. You see, it was about my beloved pumpkin, and you see, I said something incorrect, or at least partially incorrect, because I took no delight in harming my beloved pumpkin. But when 1,000 communist bandits failed in coordinated effort to land even a single telling blow, I have no choice but to take pride in knowing that I was more effective than an army. This single rose managed to shed a blood where they failed. But about the broken rules of engagement, I may have broken them more than once, and so too had they been broken from the moment that I stepped foot amongst your ranks. Because I remember one of the first things that happened shortly after sharing my original precious world which I had sacrificed. Immediate accusations laid at my feet were, first of all, you built it too quickly. We don't believe that you could have. We found leaf blocks that don't exist. We found skylight levels in the nether below the ceiling. And we just don't believe you. There's MC edit waypoints in your world. And it was just like, well, for the MC edit waypoints, I have an excuse on that world. It's because that cursed forge, when I was using replay mod, it would leave every last one of my observers in a permanently powered state. And the only way at that point that I knew to return them back to their proper function was to use MC edit, target them all, and then replace them all, one direction at a time with their proper function, their proper form. As for the skylight levels in the nether, I had no explanation. Maybe it was a side effect of having torn away the roof. I didn't know. All of those things I didn't have proper explanations for. So they went through and found at least what they believed were, wow, that is loud. My ears becoming more sensitive? It did clean a lot of blood out of them. But in that world it taught me much. It taught me the proper rules of engagement. It taught me what not to do. And so I did my best to share what I had learned with everyone else about what not to do. They made a great deal of credit where credit is due, but they never paid attention to their own words. They would claim responsibility for things that they had discovered while failing to say where they had discovered it. In that case, they had discovered it in my world, among my works. They claimed it as their own work, their own discoveries. I presented to them slime warping. They claimed it was nothing more than a bug to be removed in the next update. I let them know that I felt they were wrong. That I had premonitions of the future. They told me that this was a solid, reliable, predictable feature that was powerful and would remain in the game for a very, very long time. I was back in 1.11, and it's still in the game in 1.21. A solid, predictable, reliable feature. Something that you can count on. Something that you can easily work with, or work around, depending on what you want. Naturally, it's led to several in the way of beautiful, marvelous creations. From double-speed conveyors to elevators that work beyond the speed of what I had ever anticipated. Do I want or need credit for what they had done? No. They put forth so much effort into their machines that I can't even bring myself to use them for fear that I'll forget one day to scream their names at the top of my lungs and let them know that I love them. But as for the ideas of corruption and regeneration, a twin-headed beast, something that can take from you, something that can give you something great. I had chosen on seeing too many chickens in my world to put forth the effort required to figure out how and why it happened, as well as contain it, such that I could observe it for a great long period of time, until I felt that I understood it and could tell people more than they were willing to go and find out for themselves. Through it, I found a dupe, and I made use of that dupe. Yes, I did. After all, I was unwilling to break more than but a single spawner block in my world, and I wasn't willing to sacrifice more than one in the way of my precious end portal frames. So instead, the corruption, it gave me back what I had lost. Everything from 1024 forward out into this land which I haven't yet tamed, I had to redo, simply because right around here somewhere, out in the middle of a river, I can't remember precisely which river, but all of it had to be sacrificed to get rid of the first corrupted chunk, because 17,000 chickens were the death of this world. Just like 1,000 communist bandits were the death of my first world. But this at least was something that I could control. And so too, I had managed to control it until I came to the conclusion that it was the regenerated chunk which was the source of the corruption. Both it and its benign brother had to die for the sake of the world. And so they did. I removed them. I removed them through the use of NBT editing. Just like when the observers were permanently powered, I had made the mistake of using MC Edit to remove them, because I figured at that point in time they had been effortlessly broken by something I didn't understand, so they would be effortlessly restored by something I couldn't understand. But of course it was a mistake. Many mistakes have been made. Lots of people have made mistakes. Some were forgivable, others were wicked sins. People aiming for that which they should not aim, as compared to somebody accidentally striking which they didn't mean to aim for. Like me hurting every last one of my friends. The ones who I loved the most were the ones who were hurt the most. Of course, pains me to think about it. It really does. We weren't the first who were kicked, and we probably weren't the last who were kicked, but we were kicked with the least of reasons, simply because they were tired of dealing with our rules, because they knew that they couldn't have what they wanted until we were gone. That until Ray was gone, no general item duping would ever be permitted on the server. And until I was gone, they wouldn't be rid of Ray. So they got rid of both of us. And yes, I did offer you really an unforgivable act of hubris when I said, not just invite him back, but beg him to come back, and your former glory might yet be restored. Burn every last one of those cursed command blocks that you gained with falling block, because you should have never aimed for them in the first place, yet you blindly rushed forward to grab them and claim them as your almost stepped on a grave. To claim them as your own, while ignoring far more worthy targets, things which you should have been aiming for. Everyone dreams of having petrified slabs. Everyone dreamed of having petrified slabs. And now anyone can have petrified slabs on almost any world. Truly a worthy goal. Now, am I saying that duping, for example, is wrong in all circumstances? Not necessarily, although I had used this corrupted chunk for the purpose of duping. It's because it took from me so much that I couldn't easily have back. Hours, days of effort wasted. So naturally, the only correct answer was, fine, I'll show how powerful it is, by gaining forth as many mob spawners as I want, and as many end portal blocks as I need. And so too I had, a couple of double chests of each, waiting for me until the day that I'm ready, the day that I have a task. But I'm not ready yet. I don't plan to go to the end dimension in this version. I'll be waiting, just like some of my friends on other servers when I joined them. They swore me that I would not go to the end without them, that we would all go at the exact same time on the exact same day when everyone had time to do it. And so we did. Now, I may have cheated slightly by using a copy of their world, the seed, just to look at the end dimension and count precisely how many blocks of obsidian will I need to connect this platform to the island. Or will I need to make sure that I've got my best pick with me such that I can dig as fast as possible? The answer was made clear. 6 blocks of obsidian will be brought with you, and so they were. Now, they, among so many others, had, yes, cheated and gotten some things that perhaps they didn't earn. Elytra, I had duped them for them, but they had broken down the server owner to the point that he was willing to go into creative just to stop them from going and increasing the size of his world by terabytes, with a hollow threat that they could pull off. Go AFK on a flying machine and just wait until the following morning and then randomly travel about until they had what they wanted if he wouldn't give it to them. So I stopped him, said, no, don't do that. I'll do it. He offered me, I'll put you into creative if you want. No, don't do that. I don't want that. I'll go there myself a very short distance and pick up just enough to run the machine. Then, of course, I'd curse them with vanishing, such that when everyone saw them, they immediately cried out, "You've ruined them! They're worthless!" Good. That's the response I wanted. Now I'll show you the workaround. Craft 2 of them together in your hand, and you'll have what you want. A clean elytra. Naturally, of course, they asked me, dupe up a whole bunch of other stuff for us. We want you to. If you won't do it, we'll do it for you. Answer was no. Do you want to die? Oh. Okay, well then never mind. Good. You'll give what I gave you, and you'll put forth the proper sacrifice in exchange. From you I want effort. I told them, go work on the villager breeder, go work on the systems, go find for me all of the enchantments that you so desperately want, that we might trade for emeralds, and then trade those emeralds for enchantments. Now, of course, there's a difference between being given permission to go and do something like that, and doing something like that despite what everyone else is asking you, begging you. But dupes were done, and they led to people being kicked from their team, not because they had duped, but because they had deceived. They had claimed, I didn't dupe this using any number of methods. I found these, I went through the effort. They're rightfully earned, they're mine. Be they sponges or whatever else. So much effort had to be put into proving that that wasn't true. We went through and hand counted every sponge using a backup. And what you said is a lie. You know the cost. And so they were kicked. Although I can't be certain that the two of them did it in the same way, or even did it with the same item, or even had the same circumstance around them. They both had the exact same punishment, and later I went through to make sure that I at least finished the tasks that they were in the process of. Now, for example, my beloved little friend Yendrik was almost despised by the community at large, but I liked him, because I saw that his heart was in the right place, and he, more so than any other person, understood what would be required to make people accept something as being legitimate. He was the one who I went to when it was time for my fortress farm to be designed. He was the one who told me, 4 or 5 skulls per minute, that'll be sufficient, and anyone will accept your device as being worthy. And so I took his words to heart and built my machine to his specifications. Beautiful, wonderful machine, built with the help of so many hands, designed by the sacrifice of so many. I went through and finished both of their tasks. Yendrik was working on an ocean monument, and when I was asking for permission to build at the site of an ocean monument, I was forbidden from using the closest, but handed his, as it was only halfway dug out. So I took everything that he had, safely stored it down below, moving his sorting system, such that should we choose to go and dig for riches, we could toss them in nearby water streams and have them automatically sorted for us. Now, when he was ready to join us again, I'd be happy to go and give him back everything that he had, all of his gear, stored away safely, next to the gear of so many other people who had simply chosen to walk away, having other ambitions that needed to be met, their tasks they said were finished. So I decided, fine, your task may be finished, you may be ready to walk away, I won't beg you to stop, but I will rush forward and be the first one to go claim your gear, such that I can place it aside in your name for the day that you're ready to return, even if that day should never come. Now, for all I know, everything that I had may have been destroyed like all of the other builds. More than half of the builds that I had built on that server, in my eyes, were griefed by people who loved printing TNT duper arrays. Why should we bother collecting these ink sacs? We can do it again. They're worthless. Oh, simple, because there isn't a single ink farm on the server, and I have a great need for them. I begged and begged for them to just give me enough time, and finally the coordinated effort of so many actually saw that at least enough of them would be saved that I could finish my task, although I was never truly finished. As for the other of the two people who were kicked, Methods may have been greedy when he decided that he too would make use of that one bug to give him everything that he wanted, and it cost him the ability to finish Slave Island. So I went there, iron in hand, plenty of glowstone, and proceeded to finish his work, because I knew that it was important to make sure that his work was properly finished and his memory be honored. Now, as for the two of them, I can't say anything truly unkind about them, because for what I was told, Methods was sorry for what his team had done, at least to me. He may not have said it to me, but the words reached me, such that I knew that he wasn't acting in malice. Maybe it was just ignorance, maybe it was just peer pressure. Maybe it was any combination of things. For all I know, maybe he was just drunk. Who cares? But making sure that their tasks were finished at least saw to myself that they wouldn't have to roam as cursed spirits whose job could never be finished. Now, on the idea of printing and duping, or printing and griefing specifically, many of my builds were removed by people who I felt just couldn't understand how much effort had gone into it, because they begged and insisted on daily votes to remove every last server rule. They can't get rid of general item duping without getting rid of Ray. They can't get rid of the ban on printers without getting rid of me. To this day, many people still use printer mod on their servers. Some of them even claiming that they're not doing it in the wrong way, that it's only showing them where to place their blocks. Which just made me shake my head in frustration, confusion. Why not just build your machines such that you can actually memorize them? Take for example my machines which I had dubbed the Unbreakable. They were built to the specifications of others. I do believe that it was Purple Dragon Nuke who had offered forth the challenge, and I stepped forward, loving a challenge. He defined that he wanted a fast tree farm without 0 ticks, and that a fast tree farm would be 20 game ticks or faster. So I rushed into it headlong and increased the challenge, that I would even remove T flip-flops from my design, and that I would go further. I'd remove the hoppers from my designs, and that I would sacrifice off of the top end 2 game ticks, removing them from 12 down to 14, but it would increase their value, at least in my eyes. Now, sure, some people immediately afterwards produced many in the way of tree farms that were precisely 2 game ticks faster than mine, and immediately wanted praise and congratulations for what they had managed to do, that it was far better than anything I could do. And it was just a deal where I only could ask, are you deaf? I already told you. 2 were sacrificed off of the top end for a function that you do not have, a feature that you will not aim for. Am I telling you that all tree farms with hoppers in them are unworthy? That the moment that you go over 6, 8, or even 10, that your efforts are wasted? Absolutely not. Never would. If you have 3 dispensers handling bone meal, it'll be difficult, unless you plan to load them by hand, to do it without at least 6 hoppers down there to feed them. And then of course I'd added a couple more hoppers just for the sake of collecting the remainder saplings, if you should choose to be farming jungle, and do it AFK, overnight, and get your inventory completely filled. That way your hard work won't be wasted, and you'll continue to gain those saplings, at least a couple of double chests worth. Now as for the true king of tree farms, that would be Pineapple Cake. He learned from everything that I taught, and he was willing to follow the rules of engagement. And even if his machines had T flip-flops and 0 ticks in them, he had more than tripled the speed of any of my farms. And all of the rules of engagement were well observed. Maybe he did it with plenty of hoppers and hopper carts, but that didn't matter, because everything else about his machine was perfect. Everything about his work made it a worthy sacrifice. That pleased me more than I can imagine. Now, does it matter what I think? Are these rules that I've made really that important? Well, first of all, I don't think I made the rules. I think I observed them, and then spoke them into being. And as for what I think, I don't think anyone thinks an original thought. I think every thought has existed before minds were able to think them. Now, of course, many people will know firsthand that it's remarkably difficult to understand some of the points that I'm getting at, because I won't even speak them properly. But sometimes the difference between exact proper speech and using magical words is all in the effect. For example, if I tell you that Hippocrates had once said that he observed the signs of people who had starved to death, and that even if they could be convinced to change their mind, that about the point in time that a week had gone by, the Jagunum had grown closed, and they would fail to be able to survive, that they wouldn't recover. Perhaps it's not the Jagunum. Maybe it's actually sole responsibility of electrolytes and the depletion in the process of rebuilding broken and new material to build your body back up again. But I ask you, where are the electrolytes absorbed? And the answer is the Jagunum, which means that Hippocrates was right, even if his words weren't perfect. Now, of course, I mentioned duping in passing. I even briefly mentioned a proper sacrifice in passing. Am I saying that if you should dupe a whole bunch of God knows what, that you need to go burning diamonds? No. For one, diamonds are a non-renewable resource, and it pains me to see people burning non-renewable resources. Much the same when many enemies in our ranks went through and found the one block in the game which I despised. Glazed terracotta. So they went and destroyed every last piece of precious stained clay to make as much in the way of that disgusting block as they possibly could, not even caring if there was hookups inside of the sorting system to handle them. In their eyes, it was excellent to have all of it go straight into the trash and get burned, and they would continue until there was not one scrap of its precious counterpart, and only the remains being empty space and grief, wasted effort. What would be a proper sacrifice? Well, I don't know, but I'll bet you that the spirit of the community at large knows. Emeralds, for one. Their blocks, even better. Their ores, never. Simple, because of the effort required to gain blocks of emeralds. I've given away stacks of them before to people who were brand new to the server, letting them know, here, take this and go get yourself some gear. Are you certain? Yes, I'm certain. The sacrifice time that it took to gain these is worthy, because you have already proven yourself as deserving. Was burning the things quite the right answer? Well, all the same with farming a high score using a single block of obsidian. I don't necessarily know that burning is the correct answer, although the Lord on high, he does respond to a burn sacrifice. There's more than one way to offer a sacrifice. Now, on the idea of wasted precious resources, I can't pick these up in this version, and because they've existed in my world for so long, I likely will never attempt to pick them up. But when the time comes for me to pick up items that are non-renewable, but even if they're as worthless as dirt, I'm happy to put forth the effort needed to make sure that they don't get burned or wasted, despawned, because it'll be a failure on my part if I should run out of dirt in this world and actually need to go destroying biome after biome, loading brand new areas just for the sake of getting something that I had squandered so carelessly. On the idea of a storage system, it was made clear by a pillar, one man in the community who stood alone as a pillar, even though he was a member of a particular group, and even assisted them in their goals, which was, of course, delay unreasonable requests at the rest of us. I pray that he'll have learned his lesson from his struggle, watching that as he built his mod, that he was in the process of making a marvelous tool and for a grand purpose, and yet almost found himself at the mercy of legal action. Hopefully he'll have learned his lesson from that, and instead of just forgetting it all due to his rewards, which almost seemed undeserved, he'll have mercy on the next programmer in line who builds another mod for the sake of giving back something which should not have been taken away. This game was supposed to be able to be operated in single player as well as multiplayer. A single player game that requires the internet to run cannot be called a proper game. Now, that's only an added increment because of people who would insist that you pay to play, by making sure that you pay their service providers for an internet connection, knowing that a desktop computer is ludicrously difficult to carry around and connect to a source just for the purpose of being able to play the next version, where in the past, the creators were more than happy to offer forth the files and give you permission to update your game even if you don't pay for an internet subscription. Hopefully he understands and will show the same mercy, forgiveness, and perhaps justly deserved rewards that he was given. Now, I touched on it more than twice, and here's time for me to poke it hard. A living storage system would be different than a museum, would you not say? And a proper double chest of material would go inside of a living storage system, yes, eventually, maybe, but it would also disable a proper sorting system, because it would make it to where it would no longer sort the material that you had finished collecting, which means that it doesn't belong in your sorting system. It belongs inside of a museum, a proper double chest of material. Because of course you wouldn't even bother touching it once it was finished. You would leave it as something that you could show to others. Behold my feat of strength, I've collected a double chest of shulker boxes of insert material here. Now behold my works. It's like excellent, worthy of being in a museum. But a proper sorting system, it's the type of thing that I do believe has to be maintained. That you have to be willing to go back to it until we can find a better way, and pull from it every single time that you're about to go and work on a project, and take those material off to your dig site, store them away until you've got everything staged, and then you can go to your farms and find what's missing. What purpose does it serve to choke your storage system until it can't breathe, simply by making sure that you are the one who crafted the most fence gates on a server? There's no purpose in being the one who crafted the most fence gates if you haven't placed a single one, or if the number that you've placed isn't even comparable to anyone else, or if there isn't a single bit of proof to show that you've done it. Now sure, many of the things that I've done, there's no proof remaining anymore to show that I ever did it. And I suppose that that'll just have to be something that I accept, even if it's not fine. But you would agree with me now, after a brief explanation, that people who won't build without the assistance of a mod showing them how and where to build haven't necessarily done anything truly great. Maybe their build is amazing, and if they designed it themselves, then maybe it's absolutely marvelous. But it was created effortlessly. Whereas builds of far less value, apparently, took ages to build. And running a TNT duper over the top of them to effortlessly remove them is spitting in the face of their creator, simply because you want to hurt him. So now I ask, have you seen what I'm trying to point at? Do you understand the reason why I build what I build, the reason why I do what I do, the reason why I say what I've said? It's not to hurt you. It's to stop you from hurting yourself. Even if you never suffer for your actions, you'll fail to see the proper rewards for having done what you've taken so much time to do. Now my tasks down below weren't finished. I came to understand why it had become increasingly more and more difficult to continue digging. I forgot these leaf blocks. They're making it dark down there, and therefore they need to be removed, one at a time, but only the right ones. These 4 over and over again until I've managed to fix what's down there, and then I can go back and put them in place again once my task is complete. Now, all to the same, I've watched many people make errors, and you have to ask yourself, if you build something off by 1 block, do you immediately leap to MC Edit and say, well, I built it off by 1 block, MC Edit will go ahead and scoot it over by 1 block, this is fine? Or do you go and remove it, rebuild it, no matter how difficult it is, and maybe even learn from it in the process, realizing that you could have made your machine so much better, so much simpler, so much easier to memorize, or even just more powerful all around. So in the sense, rebuilding becomes a sacrifice that you've made, because not only did you want it built in the proper location, but you've also gained something that you didn't have before. Now, on the note of pointless discoveries, yes, previously I did show you precisely how you could go about creating not only a corrupted chunk, but also a regenerated chunk. Mind you, the corrupted chunk continually regenerates, but is dangerous. The regenerated chunk is only done once, and needs to be redone again. And targeting its location might be difficult, because at the moment it seems to be semi-random. But given time, I'm certain that someone will discover, for themselves, how to target the chunk very specifically, and do like I've shown, that it can be done in any version. That it's not version specific. Or at least this method isn't. Now, loading or unloading, whichever of the two it is, at first I thought it was unloading, now I start to think that it might be loading. Similarly too, with its random nature, being able to move the location of spawn, you may be able to choose to do it in almost any version, and quite a few of them you would use a command to do that. The method I showed used no command, and I do believe that you can figure out a way to target very specifically where you want it to move through with no command. And of course, when you've discovered how to make it non-random, you'll deserve praise for having discovered how to make it non-random. I only pray that you'll remember me. But that isn't necessary. Little Marin asked the same thing. Never forget this song. Or me. Now I mentioned in passing that I dreamed that you would gaze upon seagulls with a spyglass. Damn it! And you would be shown their point of view, and that it would be a suitable replacement for replay mod. You wouldn't go to little Marin and break her heart by telling her that she didn't invent the song, She discovered it. She found it. Even if she wasn't the first. The only thing that she asked in response was, please, don't forget, now that you know.